Webster, he was, again, a Revolutionary War veteran. He was with the New England Rangers, first group of Rangers from Connecticut. And he saw some action, but later on after the war, in the early 1780s, he came out with the Speller, the Grammar, and the Reader in his early 20s. And these books talked about the English language and how it differed from British English. Because still, Britain, they talked English, and Americans talk English, but they wanted to have it different because they are no longer under British. And there were some differences. So these books talked about, spelling and grammar and just all those different things, but then it was compiled into the American Spelling Book, also known as the Blueback Speller. So this is an original that I have from 1804. So I'll bring it over here where some of you can see it. So this is original from 1804, and you can see how it has some wood and some leather bound. So that's an old book, isn't it? So this book is roughly 221 years old.
That's really old.
It is really old, that is right. But in this book, I won't read all of it, but it has Genesis chapter 1 through 3 summarized for children, talking about how the Lord made the heavens and the earth and all that dwelled in it, and from day 1 to day 6, and then resting on the 7th day. So it goes through that whole creation week. But then it also has questions about morality and reading the Bible. And the spelling words are like Jericho, Babylon, Jerusalem. Those were all the spelling words in this book. But it was also endorsed by Oliver Wolcott and George Washington, who were signers of the Declaration of Independence. So Noah Webster also had some orations about the Declaration of Independence. And in this book, this is a very old, hard one to find, but this is an original 1833 Noah Webster's history book. So they make reprints of these, but this is an original one. And it took me a long time to try to find this one. But this, from my research, I believe to be like the first history book for America, that Noah Webster compiled himself. But it also goes all the way back to the Tower of Babel and sort of starts from there and talks about Christopher Columbus and some other instances like that. Over here is also a Noah Webster dictionary from 1841, an original one. So he died in 1843, and this newspaper here, it's called the Boston Cultivator, Boston, Massachusetts, June 10th, 1843, the passing, death, and obituary of Noah Webster. And right up here at the yellow arrow, this whole column talks about it. But it makes mention that Noah Webster lived and died in the faith of the gospel, and when he died with entire composure and resignation. And I think that's a very important part to know, because he was doing God's work in the sense of this dictionary. He's thought it to be so important to understand the English language so the reader can understand God's word and what it truly means. So a lot of these definitions go back to the Hebrew and original tongue that God's word was originally, written in. So he believed that to be a very important thing, and just as it says, he lived and died in the faith of the gospel in full composure and resignation, which simply means that he was ready to pass on from this world into the next with the Lord into heaven, as was a lot of the men in the American Revolution. And see, that's just a part you don't hear so much about, because why would they make the Declaration of Independence? At the end, it says this: "And for the support of this declaration, with firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." Why would they just pledge all these things if they knew they were just eventually going to die at some point in life anyways? Well, it's in the sentence, this divine providence. They believed that the land was given from the Lord to them to take care of and further spread the gospel as was what the Pilgrims believed, and the Puritans, and all those men that came over in the early 1600s. Because it's interesting to think of, what did the founding fathers look back to? Well, they looked back to the time of the Pilgrims, as we look back to the founding fathers. So it's an interesting contrast or idea to think of, that what did they look back to? That's what they looked back to. And if you read the Mayflower Compact, the Virginia Compact, and things like that, it was all about spreading God's word.